you have to know who your audience is. And that doesn't mean that I let go of myself or that I dim my light, but strategically, I know that I need to present a different type of case for a different audience.
And so I think that it is important while you are gaining your kind of bearing as a professional or as a person generally, that you don't put yourself out there as being something more than you are. Nothing tells me you lack confidence more than being unwilling to admit what you don't know.
Your ego is a block to your growth.
We all know in the practice of law, it is a practice. And the reason why it's a practice is you don't know how to do certain things until you screwed up. Like, I have learned more about the practice of law by having people file motions to dismiss.
Welcome back to the Feminine Formidable podcast, where we dive into the real conversations about the issues that affect us as women. I am your host, Sarah Williams.
And I'm Fonteneau. Let's get it started. How was your week?
It was great. It was great.
That's what you always say.
I know, because you have to. My grandmother always says you have to speak it into existence. And so
you lied?
So I think that I am working on focusing on joy. Like, I realize that a lot of times when I say I had a bad week, it's because like 2 bad things happened. The rest were fine, but I've allowed those bad things to overshadow the good things that happen. And so I am working on doing the reverse of that and saying, you know what, I had a good week. A couple bad things happened, but I'm not letting them ruin my week.
Yeah, so I was pretty good, but I think I'm realizing that I might have fallen down as a mom this week a little bit because I don't have anything lined up for my daughter to do this summer at all. But she's also going to high school, so like I don't know if like I need.
Well, that's a tough age because how old is she?
She's 14. She'll be 14.
So she might be a camp counselor. Like, she can start working at these camps.
So it's
right?
funny that you say that because you have to pay to be a camp.
You have to pay to be a camp counselor.
Yes.
They got to pay to work.
They're still campers.
They got to pay to work.
They're still campers. So they pay to be campers. But it's not till next year. So you have to be 15. You do. But like, I was like, do high schoolers still go to camp? Like, I enjoy camp. And I went to camp. The last time I went to camp, I was in 9th grade. But yeah, like, so do I need her? Like, you know, she could just kind of chill at the house and get ready. She got a lot of track stuff that we have to do.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have anything scheduled for her. I feel bad about that. I'm going to work on that. I still have time.
It's the summer now.
Yeah. It's wait lists. There's wait lists. I don't know what I'm going to do.
Sounds like old sis going to be traveling with her mama.
Yeah, we got some stuff on for that. She is traveling. She has some trips. There's that.
All right. Well, let's, I know it's a lot of times we feel like we are failing as moms. The most feedback I've been getting about our podcast is people are loving the Take Your Cape Off segment. And so tell me, Kyra, how you plan on taking your cape off this week.
So I've been doing this for a long time, but like I walk out of my door and I will have all of my sundries on drop ship from Amazon, Subscribe and Save.
Now, sundries for those of us who speak the common tongue.
So napkins, paper towels, dishwasher detergent, Tide, all the things that I use, like consumable type stuff for like grocery bags. And these chocolate covered almonds that my husband likes to eat, they just show up on my door. I don't go. Well, I'm not going to Target for any reason. I haven't been there all year, but all the things that you would get in that aisle at Target or Walmart, they just show up on my door. Vitamins, anything that has to be replenished a lot in the house, it just shows up. Now, the big problem with that though is that sometimes the order schedule, like it'll be coming every 2 months, but it really needs to come every 6 months. So I have enough. I had enough like toilet paper, like for like, you know, in case the COVID comes back again.
The problem is remembering to pause it, especially like if you have times where you're traveling a lot. So I've got like 4 boxes of protein shakes in my garage. I'm like, I'm probably good for the rest of the year. My take your cape off is a weekly maintenance day. So I find that I get the week started and I just go, 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 go. And I never have time to just pause and actually like strategize or plan or run errands, get my hair done, get my nails done. And then it's like on the weekend when you think maybe you will do those things, you're trying to spend time with your kids. And it's like, man, now I've got to do these things to like keep myself up and I want to spend time with my kid and do some relaxing things. So I have started putting on my calendar in the middle of the week what I call an admin day, but it's not just for work. It's also like for me too, to schedule and get my hair done. And it is a DND, do not disturb. Like there is not a problem that exists that I can't have one day that I don't need to address it.
I agree with you on that, and I happen to go to a person who does my hair who really would prefer to do hair during the week, and so I had to get my hair done most of the time during the weekdays. We meet each other at like 8 o'clock and 7:30 in the morning most of the time, and that is a good day because like it is, and we also watch Dr. Pimple Popper while we're doing that, so it is a good day. But yeah,
shout out Brianna. She gets you in and out too.
Yes, but I do think that it like on the weekend I want to just do nothing, or I got to be at the soccer field, and also it doesn't make sense to have your hair done on Saturday or Sunday because ain't nobody gonna see it.
Right.
You need to get your hair done during the middle of the week so that people will see it, and then you can work out on the weekend, get it all messed up, and then come back in and look fresh for the week. You're right. I'm with you when you're right. I'm with you when you're right.
So instead of a letter today, I want to talk about a post that I saw on Instagram. Have you seen it, Melody Hobson? Okay, I'm going to show it to you.
I'm gonna tell you. I think
I want you to play it. There were a ton of comments, and I think it's a good discussion about playing small versus being yourself and staying true to yourself.
That is something that a lot of people have been surprised that I say, but sometimes you have to be very small to be very big. And I found, especially as a woman of color, that in certain rooms, I am too big. My personality or my confidence or even my speaking voice. There's a person who's a very well-known kind of shy billionaire that I remember once I was talking to in a lobby of a hotel, and every time I stepped forward, he stepped back. And by the end, we were like across the room. And I was like, I'm too big. I have to get small. And as soon as I pulled myself in a lot, which people would say, like, why would you make yourself small? He was like, can you sit down with me? It was very interesting that he was uncomfortable when I was in my full self. But the more that I could just modulate for him, the better it became for him, the more comfortable he became, which was okay, because his comfort at that point allowed me to learn a lot.
This particular post had over 700 comments and a ton of shares, but the biggest issue people had was, did she dim her light for the comfort of someone else? And so the question is, have you ever experienced having to play small in order to have you ever had to play small in order to achieve something or to navigate certain spaces?
Well, I mean, as lawyers, we do modulate. So I want to be clear that like you do have to respect the space that you're in, and you do have to change to a certain extent what you say so that you can be heard. So I do understand that to a certain extent, but it does sort of rub me as a little bit wrong and a lot wrong for someone to say, I have to be small in order for someone else to hear me. Because that speaks to a power dynamic that I don't think we should be that we should be playing into. Because they wouldn't have that same response to a man. They wouldn't. A man doesn't have to play small necessarily. And in fact, we want them, or we allow men to take command of a situation that has a commanding presence. That's okay. But a woman with a commanding presence is off-putting. And so, if there is something that you want from someone, you got to figure out how you're going to get it. But then you have to question whether it's actually worth it if when you get it that way. So I'm a little conflicted about that.
Yeah, I was conflicted too. I think when she first started speaking about being small to be big, I was like, we ain't sisters on this. But then when she gave that specific example where it's like you want to engage with this person and maybe they're an introverted person, maybe they are of another culture, right? I remember when I was in law school, we went to an international mediation competition. And when we competed nationally, the comments were, oh, your temperaments were even keeled. They were perfect for mediation and alternative dispute resolution. And when we went to Paris, they were like, you all were way too aggressive, right? And so I think that sometimes, right, there are cultural situations, right? When we travel overseas, right, you aren't always as like loud and boisterous as you may be in the States because you have to respect the culture that you're in. So I do think that it is important to be able to be yourself, but know when a certain atmosphere or environment calls for a different version of you.
Right. Well, you wouldn't go into a church and start cussing, right? Like you wouldn't. So I think there's a difference between observing norms, right? And changing who you are so that another person can remain comfortable.
Yeah.
Because we live in a very diverse country and their version of what's acceptable may or may not really be reflective of the entire society that we're in. And, some of the words that she said was, my voice can bother people. Like, she cannot innately change her voice, right? Like those, like and they talk about that. Like some men don't like the sound of women's voices, that it's too high pitched. They don't feel like that. So and she doesn't even actually have that high pitched voice, but like if that is something that you're changing because a person does not like the sound of women's voices, like that is deeply problematic because you cannot woman yourself. I mean, you can't make, those are how you present and what your outer carriage is who you are. And we can't change that for other people. And I know that we want people to hear us and understand us, but like there's some people it's okay. It's okay if we don't have to be friends. You don't have to.
That's exactly right. If you've decided, I think that the key to me with her dialogue was she clearly wanted that interaction. Do you know what I mean? Like it was something that she wanted. And I think that we try very hard sometimes to put ourselves in spaces where we are not accepted and to continuously, it's like these birds out here at this office killing themselves, flying so hard to kiss this window. And then we walk outside and they're dead on the ground because you're trying to get into a space that's not ever going to accept you. Right. And so you've got to find a different path to get to that place that doesn't require, right, that you throw yourself against the figurative wall.
Yeah, and a lot of times they don't even really have an answer. It's like you're listening to these people. Sometimes I will watch these meetings where they're talking to these people who are like business, like CEOs and executives, and you'd be like, that's not that profound. And so you've gone through this whole, scenario of trying to change who you are so that person will talk to you, and they don't really have anything to share. I don't know.
You just thought they did because of the place where they are in life.
And they may not really have that much insightful to say. Like half of the people that you see on the like on social media or on news, giving their analysis, sometimes it's wrong.
Yeah. I do think, we talked about in our last episode the power of networks, right? And so I think it's okay to decide to be strategic. If that's a decision that you've made, to be strategic versus to abandon yourself and to advocate for people abandoning themselves. But I also think that people need to develop multi-dimensional personalities, right? Like you said, we try cases. I cannot try a case the same way in state court as federal court. There are certain counties that I go to that I can't try a case the same way I tried it in North Alabama as in Central Alabama, right? There are certain ways that I'm going to try it differently based on who I know my jury to be. And I think it's the same thing with your audience. You have to know who your audience is. And that doesn't mean that I let go of myself or that I dim my light, but strategically, I know that I need to present a different type of case for a different audience.
Right. But you don't present a different Sarah.
It's
And
still
that's the
Sarah.
difference. It's not, and I can't present as Sarah.
Right.
Right. And so, but she wasn't talking about changing what she said or using analogies that he would understand. She talked about changing her.
Yeah, and it's hard not being there, but there are ways, like there are different Sarah voices for me, even within like an opening statement, right? Like there is the professorial Sarah when I'm explaining the law, and that's a different Sarah than the righteous indignation when I'm talking about the wrongdoing, and that's a different Sarah than the now I need to be empathetic. Sometimes I need to be the mother, right? And sometimes I need to be the warrior. And sometimes I need to be the teacher. And all of those things are aspects of my personality. And so for me, it is, I need to figure out what part of me is going to be most effective with this listener. Continuing our discussion on how you show up in order to grow, we want to talk about this idea of the pressure to be constantly visible, which I think social media has enhanced. It's a tough one for two people who obviously market on social media and who are very visible. But I think what I've found with some younger lawyers is they look at us and think, this is where I need to start. And neither of us started as visible as we are now.
Well, social media visible. Because I think I met you when you were out and about, like, being a lawyer. So I will say that you've always been visible, but I don't think that you've always sought attention. And I think that's a difference between being visible and seeking attention. You're going to continue to do the things that you do. I'm going to continue to do the things that I do. Not necessarily always going to put out everything that I do. Because sometimes, you move and you're doing a thing that you don't really know what you're doing yet, right? You're just taking steps, you're learning, you're growing. And what you might want to put out is as a finished product is maybe something very different than what you're doing right now. And so I think that it is important while you are gaining your kind of bearing as a professional or as a person generally, that you don't put yourself out there as being something more than you are currently.
Right. Which I think young lawyers struggle with, young professionals struggle with, the need to feel like you have to go in being an expert. And you don't have to be an expert to be visible. And visibility, right, is showing up at the right networking events, showing up at the internal networking events, having your partners or whoever may be the decision makers know what you're working on, know what you've had successes in, for me, one of the things that was important early in my career when I was learning like trucking litigation was making sure the folks, when I was going to conferences to learn, making sure people knew that I was putting in the effort to go and get the knowledge to make me better. Right. I wasn't holding myself out as someone who could teach anyone else then, right? Because I was still learning, but I did make sure that my efforts to learn were visible.
And I actually think that it is I think you get a lot further with a attitude of showing people that you are learning or that you're willing to learn. Because I think one of the hardest things about being confident is knowing what you don't know and being open about knowing what you know. Nothing tells me you lack confidence more than being unwilling to admit what you don't know. And I think what we see a lot of times, people, especially people who are getting out on social media because they believe that's something that's important to do, is that they are out ahead of their skis with their knowledge, where they're trying to make people think that they're knowledgeable and like, ooh, baby, that's just wrong. Right.
Right.
And, or,
You chat GPT that.
Right.
Dash.
Right. I mean, and it happens all the time. And you're like, that's not what the law is. But they're speaking with authority because they are imitating what it looks like to be a lawyer. They got the suit on, they got the books in the background, they got all these things that make you look like you're a smart lawyer, but like you're leading people down a road that you really can't help them necessarily. And then they'll be calling you, hey, I got this employment case that I got off the internet. Help me do it. And I'm like, well, I will help you do it. But like, why are you telling people you know how to do this when you don't?
Yeah, I have noticed, and I don't know if you've had this experience, that the people who, like at CLEs and at conferences where you are educational conferences, the people who tend to be the most experienced and the most respected when they do have downtime are taking the most notes. Right, are taking the most notes, and the flashier folks are in the hallway. Which, look, the networking in the hallways is important too. But there's a point in your career you have to master the subject before you can hold yourself out as an expert in it. And that doesn't mean you can't market for certain cases before you have developed an expertise in them, or whatever it is you do for work. But it does mean that you need to make sure that you are not out kicking your coverage and the extent of your knowledge.
Well, and this is also too, I think, there's like some sort of a cultural dynamic too among some people some people look at their job as to portray themselves as an expert. And they do that to their own detriment, because the lawyer I want, if I want, is the one who is going to the other things in the CLE because they heard this other person had a trick, like that they had learned, and they wanted to see how the other people did it, because I want a person who has a growth mindset. Mm-hmm. I don't want somebody who's just saying, I've got the answer. You don't ever have to think about this. I'm done thinking about this. I only want to practice in this one state. I know I don't want to learn anything about how they're doing it in another state. That won't work here because, borders, the people are completely different, 20 minutes away from each other, but just across the line. Those things tell me that you probably don't know what you're doing, but you're confident, but they're going to get you messed up.
Your ego is a block to your growth. I see that so much. And it's weird too, because I feel like, I don't know what it is generationally, but I feel like I see it now more, now that I'm the old lady lawyer. I feel like I see it now more with the lawyers who are, probably in the last 5 or 6 years or so than I did, before then. Like I think, and I don't know if there's something in the schools. I don't know if it is social media, there's a pressure to not look like you don't know, but the lack of the ability to say, you know what, you do it a way that I hadn't thought about doing it, and I'm going to take what I like about that and add it to my toolbox.
Well, and I thinking as the world of, if I don't know it and you share that with me, being a commentary on your value is what's get you there, right? We all know in the practice of law, it is a practice. And the reason why it's a practice is you don't know how to do certain things until you screwed up. Like, I have learned more about the practice of law by having people file motions to dismiss. Mm-hmm. I learned this finer point of law because somebody filed a motion to dismiss on me. I fixed it. I moved on. I went about my business. And now I have assimilated that information. Now, 20 years of practice, there's a whole bunch of times I got my teeth kicked in because I didn't know.
Right.
And if you tell your clients, hey, I don't know, they respect that.
Yeah, I don't know, but here's what I do know. I can figure it out. I can figure it out. And this idea that I think that people don't like to not know. They don't like to not know. They feel like that is a commentary on maybe their intelligence. But I actually think, like you, that is more of a commentary on your intelligence, that you are not open-minded enough to go, oh, shoot. Now tell me more about this. I don't know. Like that is one of the things that I love about students, like students who have an intellectual curiosity, who say, oh man, I don't know this. I don't have this cultural competence. Tell me more about, growing up in Germany. Tell me more about this. Like the people who are constantly seeking knowledge and growth are typically the ones who have more success.
Oh, absolutely. Because like you can only, I've forgotten so many things. I mean, I'm getting old and I forget a lot now, but like there's so many things. Like if you quiz me today, right, on what I know of the law, as opposed to right after I took the first bar the first time, like, 20 years ago, I know so much more law.
Right.
I had been to a lot more schooling on the law. Like I'd had more subjects and all that stuff, but like it's the assimilation and accumulation of knowledge and experience is iterative, and it is a long process. And if you walk into some situation where you just got here and you think you know everything about it, like you're just gonna screw up. Like it's kind of malpractice, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, you are not, and I think people get this mistaken too. Like when you first graduate from school, unless you actually have the actual skill, right? And it's something technical, you're not a value add, right? When we hire first years, unless like I could go and try cases, right? Which made me an actual value add because we can hand this to you and no one has to supervise you and you can just go do it. Short from actually being able to do the work, like most experienced paralegals have more knowledge and value added than most first-year lawyers. Now, we invest in you because we believe that you have the intelligence to, at some point, become a value add. But I think lately, these folks get into these jobs because the salaries have increased because the cost of living has increased, and they believe that salary is somehow a comment on their skill set and the value that they add in the space that they're in.
Yeah, and I can't tell you how many times, like, because a lot of times, because I'm a plaintiff's lawyer, they'll put like the new associate to do like the parties planning meeting, like at the very beginning. And, you'll be like, and we're running down, the thing. And it's really kind of pro forma. Like you just kind of going through this document really quick. But like, they'll be like, and we'll only do like 35 requests for production. I was like, wow. And they were like, well, because it's 35. And I'll be like, yeah, but the rule doesn't say that. And then you can hear them like keyboard and like
emailing someone.
Yeah. Can I
Teams message?
You're like, oh, you didn't know that, right? And so like you to be cut, but but you got this template that they always use, right? And it says that, and that means that's what the law is. And you're like, no, that's not the law. But you don't know that yet.
Right.
And they'll argue with you and they'll tell you this and And it's always to their detriment. Just stop and say, oh, what do you mean? Like you said, that's not what's in the rule. Like point me to I say this all the time. I could be wrong. Point me to the rule you're talking about.
Right.
Yes. Or is there a case? Now, most times I say that it's kind of a challenge. You got a case on that? But it's different. But I'm open to knowing that there's something I don't know. And I think that's I think that's the hardest part is like there's a difference between having knowledge and applying that knowledge about kind of what you think the law is and just being kind of a blowhard.
Yeah. My daddy used to say, he used to get so mad at me. And now I get it. He'd say, you've been in the world 20 minutes. And I'd be like, dude, I'm a grown woman. But now I get it. Like there are certain things you haven't even experienced enough to be able to say the things that you're saying. And you're just going to have to learn. Some of these folks have to learn the hard way. But having intellectual curiosity and being humble, I think, are two skill sets that are underrepresented lately and no one talks about. But you've got to, the people who have humility and who have intellectual curiosity are always going to do well.
But I also think there's a flip side to that.
Oh.
And that is those people who believe that they are not doing well because they don't know, right? Like they understand, they have that humility, and then they see the other people who are acting all like confident, and they think that they have missed the boat.
What do you think the gap there is for those folks, right? Like say somebody's listening and they say to themselves, I do have intellectual curiosity, and I see these folks who aren't that smart, who are messing up, but they still seem to be advancing in my organization.
You know, I spend a lot of time with my younger lawyers talking to them about why I think they're doing a great job for where they are, right? Instead of saying the bar being, you need to be as good as my friend Sarah, who's been practicing 19 years. You need to be as good as any other second year. You need to be as good as any person who is trying to do this. And I started to say, okay, go talk to your friends. How many of them are taking depots right now?
Right.
You are taking depots. It sucks. It's hard. Your brain is burning right now. It feels like you don't know how to do this. But in a year, when you've taken 4 or 5 more of these, you're going to be like, oh, why was I worried about this?
Yeah.
But this pain you're having right now where you feel like you're incompetent, because you are, but that's an accepted level of incompetence.
That's right. You're inexperienced, right? You're not necessarily incompetent. You are some of us would call it inexperienced. We are not as harsh as my friend Kyra. I do think that what happens that stops their growth is they aren't willing to take risks. And sometimes the folks with the egos, because they think they know more, are like, yeah, I'll take that deposition. And the folks who are like, I don't know enough, say, okay, I'm going to wait. I want to sit second chair. I want to watch you do this until I feel like I've mastered it, versus, you know what? I'm going to take it. And I know I'm not going to do everything right, and I'm going to learn from that, and then I'm going to do it again. And I know I'm not going to do everything right then, and I'm going to take that, and I'm going to do it again. And so I think that sometimes that if I don't know, I can't do the next thing until I do know, holds people back. So you got to find a balance of I don't know, but I'm confident enough in myself that I can figure it out. So I'm going to take the risk and do the scary thing.
Yeah, but also as their managers and as the people who care about them, we have to go to that depot with them.
That's right.
Like I had to do depots. I had to learn everything I had to learn about depots because I was a solo. And I ain't had nobody to go to them with me. So I would just go in there and screw it up and not get the answers I needed, right? Yep. And then I would get a summary judgment motion and I'd be like, oh, I'm missing that fact. Okay, we may lose unless I go get this affidavit. And so that taught me each time. But I don't think we should be doing that to the young folks that work for us. And I spend a lot of time, hopefully I think I do, going to people with their to their depositions, even though I'm not taking it. Like I'll take one while you watch. I'll take 2 while you watch. The next one you got to take.
That's right.
And then I'm going to sit there and then you're going to have me sending you a whole bunch of questions that you should have asked, and we'll fix it. And the next time I'm going to pull back a little bit further and I'm going to pull back a little bit further. And then I'm going to send you by yourself. And I think the way we were taught as young lawyers and the way, just trial by fire and pushing people off I don't think it's healthy.
My first deposition I took because a partner in our firm, was double booked, and he didn't have the deposition on his calendar, but he had to take it because of deadlines. And I was the only associate in the office because I had just been there for a couple months. And he was like, oh yeah, you're good. Like if you can try a case, because I had tried some cases, you could I hadn't taken a deposition though. So he hands me an outline, like the firm outline, and was like, here, just read my last report to the company and then go take the deposition. And in the depo, the plaintiff, this is when I was a defense lawyer, tried to fight me. And I remember going off the record and saying, look, First of all, it's my first time doing this, okay? We just need to get through it. Second, I'm from Tallahassee, Florida. Like, don't let this suit fool you. We're not going to fight. You don't need to go outside. But it was like no one had talked to me about what to do if the party you're deposing tries to fight you. It's just like, I guess I got to try to fight her back or let her know that I will fight. You know what I'm saying? Like, no one said, hey, call a judge. Hey, call it off. And so, while there are some things that I do think I wish I had been protected from, I am glad that I was allowed to make some mistakes, right?
Yeah.
And in an atmosphere where I could make those mistakes.
And you do learn about that too. I remember when I first started going into like these meetings, and like the defense lawyers would be like leading the meeting, and it sounded like they had like a special playbook that I didn't have. And then I realized they were on the court's website pulling off. Like, I was like, my goodness, I didn't have to have this memorized.
Right.
It was there the whole time.
Yes, and this sometimes you don't know what questions to even ask people. But I think that goes back to being visible. Like, don't go to work and hole up in your office. Don't start in an industry. And even if, there aren't people that you can go to, there's someone that does what you do who's been doing it longer that you need to go out and meet. But you can't do that if I saw on TikTok, this is the popular advice: do your work and go home. And it's like, oh, yeah. You will have a job if you do your work and go home. But if there are layoffs, you're going to be first on the list, right? Like when those rolls up, you're going to be first on the list. When there's a time for advancement, you're not going to be on that list. When people are thinking about promotions, you're not going to be on that list. So there's an aspect of like I understand not, doing the job that you've gotten paid for. But if you're sitting at home, just watching TikTok while your counterparts are at networking events and they're meeting people who can help them gain knowledge, you're always going to be behind. If they're out, expanding their networks, being visible, you're going to be behind. And if that's okay with you, right, then, go to work and then go home. But if it's not okay with you and you want to live like the champagne lifestyle, like champagne lifestyles are not built on the backs of people who do their job and just go home.
No, but at the same time, there are also times in your career when you need to do that. And so, thinking about like as you grow in your career, like there has to be a time when you decide to focus on the things that you need, and you have to schedule that.
Yes.
So like, what do you think about when there are times when, you and I both are moms, we, had children, during our career, like mid-early career.
Late.
No, it's not late career because I know how old you are. What about those times that you actually, or should you have prioritized some like non-productive from a career standpoint time?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm a sole breadwinner in my house. So there's not ever been a time in my career that it has not been productive. There have been times where I have taken my foot off the gas, I would say, where I haven't gone as hard in terms of marketing myself and being visible. And it tended to be during times of transition. So when I transitioned from being a defense lawyer to a plaintiff's lawyer, like that was a completely new, even though you're still practicing law, like I had to figure some things out. Right. And so I needed the time to just like I didn't teach as much. I didn't coach as much. I had just really had Malone. She was like 4 months old when I made the switch, which is wild to me. But so that was a time period where I slowed down. But then, I mean, I didn't take my foot off the gas long, which resulted in really after, I guess, 2021. I went on I call it a sabbatical, but it didn't turn out to be much of I don't know how to sabbatical. I learned, but I did slow down some and hired an associate and took a teaching position, and I wasn't at the office as much this past year because just life had been happening. I managed this firm through, COVID, to the extent we didn't have to terminate anyone. Like we had one of our best years during that time. But then my brother passed away. And, as the as the people who we are in our families, like a lot of pressure was on me to kind of navigate that situation. And then, life is just life in it. So I did slow down some, and I am, obviously for marketing purposes, I'm continuing to market, but I'm about to enter a slower period for myself where I am, walking back positions in organizations and walking back activities within the firm, because I am preparing for another phase of growth. And I feel like anytime, it's almost like a cocoon for me. Anytime I feel like I'm about to grow, I need to take some time and step back and prepare for that with rest.
Yeah, so I think for me, the last time that I kind of stepped back was when I lost a job at the public defender, right? Like, and there was a period there where I didn't even want to really be seen in public. Like, I thought, oh, maybe I'll just start over in another place, and for that time, it was about me getting better, like me healing from a trauma. And so there was several months there where I was just like, I'm going to watch my kid, swim in the pool, and I'm going to like keep my head down. I'm not going to worry about that. And then at some point it clicked and I was like, oh, no. You're going to pick your head right on back up. You're going to see me. Y'all going to do this. I choose not to go play in that, in that playground over there, but I'm going to pick this new playground and do things differently and and y'all, if anybody wants to see me, will see me. But I did need to take that time to lick my wounds and to go be, small and vulnerable with my family so that I could heal. And so I think we should not wait until we're a little bit broken before we take that time.
That's a good lesson, that you've got to listen to your body and listen to your mind and know, like, when is it time for me to slow down? I have not done that enough. I am trying to be better at that.
Yeah, they're running into the ground now. I think now, though, before we run this episode into the ground, is a good time for us to take a break.
All right, we're back, and we are talking about, this is my favorite segment, although I always spend money afterwards. We're talking about the stuff that we love. This week, the thing that I'm loving, so I'm focusing on decompression after work. I feel, and it not being doom scrolling on the phone. And so I have been coloring. And I am not an artist. But I have been coloring and listening to a book on Audible, but coloring has been my new. So there are some really good like affirmations coloring books for adults. Adult coloring is apparently a thing. So that's the stuff that I'm loving this week.
Yeah, I'm gonna let you have that. It's cute now, but like I wasn't ever good at coloring when I was a kid. Like I can't get in with the lines. I would draw. It's just not good. But I am a tech gadget person. I have always been a tech gadget person. I get it from my dad. We had a computer back in the 1980s, first computers. Like we had the first we had the first microwaves, like all that stuff. We have all the radiation. So, but my stuff we love. Actually, we both own this, but I think I had it first.
You did.
Let me see yours. These are yours. These are not mine. These are the Ray-Ban Meta glasses, which are awesome.
They're so awesome.
They're so awesome. I got these at another one of our friends, Ashley, had them first. And I went on vacation. Well, it was actually a conference, not a vacation. And she had them. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to get these. Like immediately got this. So these glasses also, they listen to your voice. They will record. They will tell you where you are. You can take pictures with them. And they're also really good glasses. And so I love these. I use them for my job. Sometimes if I need to take a video, I use them at the track meets for my daughter. So what I'm looking at, she can see. These are my like absolute stuff we love type things.
Yeah, I use them for, I do a lot of trucking work. And so I use them during my inspections. We actually just had to test the visibility field of a driver. And so we used the glasses to confirm that where our expert was marking the visibility was actually what was being seen. So they're super cool. I like them.
Yeah. So if there's a tech gadget that's new, I'm gonna have it. Like that is just my problem. So.
All right. The hill we're dying on, which is interesting because a lot of people are having to return back to the office from remote jobs, and that's been a big topic lately. What is your preference? When between working from home and working at your office, what's your preference?
I am a work from home girl. Like I love to work from home. I have when that week when the world shut down in 2020,
It was only a week in Alabama. We know it was a long time for the rest of y'all.
yeah, when it shut down, in 2020, I took my computer home. And I have not worked full time in the office since then. I do not foresee myself working in the office 100% of the time. I do have an office. I do go in sometimes. In fact, the younger people in my office actually prefer to work in the office. And so I go in out of obligation to them. But if I had my druthers, I'd be sitting in my office at the house. That is the way I like to work.
So my problem when I'm at home, when I prefer the office, is I always see something I need to do around the house, and it's like a distraction. So it's like, oh, the dogs are doing this, let me take them out, or, let me throw a load of laundry in, or, oh, there's always, I feel like, something at home that I feel like I need to do. And although sometimes when I'm in the office, there are too many people coming in asking me questions, so I have to go away. But I prefer, like, when I really need to get something done, to just lock it in at the office.
Yeah, I'm a no on that. Like, I believe, number one, I have outsourced just about everything that needs to be done in my house. We got a cleaning lady. I do cook dinner. My husband does like all that stuff. We don't have a dog. And for a long time, my husband and I both were working at home. Like we just had different parts of the house. We work very well together at the house by ourselves. And so, yeah, nah. And I am a social being too. And so if I go to the office, that means we're going to take a 2-hour lunch. And we're going to talk for 20 minutes when I get there. I get less work done in the office by a long stretch. A lot less work.
Well, that is it for this episode of the Feminine and Formidable podcast. Remember to follow us on all socials at Feminine and Formidable. See y'all next time.
See you next time.